It started like most catastrophes on the street, small and domestic, and therefore dangerously easy to ignore until it was not. The rain had been steady all morning, the kind that sits on the pavement like a film and makes umbrellas look exhausted. Inside No. 11, Carla Connor was elbow-deep in invoices and takeout menus, trying to make the numbers look less bleak than they felt. The underworld accounts had been knotted into a complicated mess by a supplier dispute that Carla suspected had both greed and spite baked into it. She loved her work. She loved the certainty of ledgers, the muscle of running a place properly. But she also loved the impossible softness of the flat she shared with a life that had once surprised her. The life now marked by small routines, the kettle, the cat that slept on an embroidered napkin. Becky MacDonald. Now Becky Connor since the wedding 2 years earlier. Though on the street she'd keep either name depending on who was asking. Was by temperament, not the kind to dress for effect. Her wardrobe was pragmatic. Jeans with scuffs at the knees, boots that had seen better auctions, a collection of colorful scarves that announced cheer in bleak weather. Today she had been at the community center, teaching a sewing workshop for teenagers who liked to make things out of charity shop fabric. The morning had wound down with gossip and teenage bravado. She had dropped by to pick up a packet of seeds she'd promised to pass along, and then, because the flat was near and the rain was endless, Becky had decided to stay the afternoon. Carla was hunched over a spreadsheet when the front door flew open with the sort of disproportionate drama only a personality like Becky's could manage. She stood there dripping and luminous, hair plastered to one cheek, a grin like she'd been told the most delightful gossip and could not be trusted to keep it. She carried a plastic bag with seeds and a small packet of biscuits, the staples of life on the street. "You're soaked," Carla said, without looking up. She had learned years ago that Becky's entrance always acted as a weather window. The room shifted with her energy. Becky shrugged out of her coat and draped it over the radiator, the steam catching the fabric and making it smell faintly of shop air and starch. "I am," Becky said, dropping herself onto the chair and wringing a sleeve. "But there's free tea at the center, and Theo tried to roast a tray of biscuits, and we all ended up eating the evidence." She laughed, and the flat filled with that roving, easy warmth that came from someone who could fill silence without fuss. Carla glanced at the clock. "You're welcome to stay. I've got a pile of invoices that hate me. We can share the misery." It was an offer, plain as the tick marks on a ledger, and Becky accepted with the grace of someone who'd had practice at sharing everything from napkins to harriches. They worked in companionable silence for a little while. Phone screens glowed with messages, the kettle clicked, the cat inspected names on the spreadsheet like an accountant with no sense of shame. Then, around 3, Becky said, "I need to nip out, for a minute. Just some food for the lads. I won't be long." Carla barely raised her head. "Get out before lockdown memories start haunting us." Becky chuckled, gathered her coat and the seeds and slipped out the door as if nothing unusual was on the horizon. The sound of rain took her like an afterthought. Carla watched the door close and returned to the numbers, the predictable rhythm of comfort. It is the tiny logistical things, a misplaced key, a flip of a calendar page, that fate often uses to open the box marked disaster. Becky, in her practical hurry, had left a plastic bag in the hall containing a borrowed dress. It had been an impulsive thing the previous weekend. Emma, down at the salon, had asked Becky if she'd wear a dress for a charity fashion show mock-up. Becky, who had last worn a dress to a christening and to a funeral, had taken it as a lark and borrowed a frock with floral print and enough frill to want to be noticed. She had promised to return it that afternoon. The bag sat innocently on the mat when a text blinked across Carla's phone. "Becky says she'll be 5 mins. Can you not let the cat on the sofa? He sheds everywhere. Also call to confirm the caterer." Carla's thumb moved without thinking. She tapped back a reply, then, reaching for a cup, knocked the bag with the edge of her sleeve. It slid under the shoe rack, unseen and waiting. Rain thickened. A car's brakes hissed outside like an offended animal. Carla's mind, train-worn with numbers and memory scared by smaller betrayals, did not expect the sudden summons that came minutes later. The doorbell, sharp as a snap. She went to open it, thinking Becky had returned early.